Yo, it's Puyo. What's going on, everybody? I hope you guys are doing amazing. Welcome to Cashflow Amigos Live. Today we are joined by the beautiful Miss Rachel. Rachel, I actually have an introduction for you, so if you don't
Oh,
mind, I'm gonna
okay.
read it. Yeah, I was thinking about letting you do it, but then I was like, no, let me do it, cause
Okay.
yeah. So let me make sure everything is up and running. Do you mind checking the? Well, I'm pretty sure everything is up and running. Got a little chat over there going in case we have a couple people that join.
Perfect.
And if we have anybody waiting, all right, cool. All right, so here goes my introduction. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool, cool, cool. So, hey guys, please help me welcome Rachel, otherwise known as Fashion Coder. She's a crypto enthusiast with a background in, you guessed it, coding, aka software development, and with an MBA in IT management. She works in product as a product owner for a tech company. You may have used one of her products before while ordering your groceries through an app on your phone. Maybe, I don't know. I won't get into the details, but what I will say is that she is here with us today to talk about crypto, maybe teach you guys some new things. Most importantly, though, she's a woman of God, a great daughter, and a great friend. Give it up for Rachel, guys. How was
That
that?
was so nice.
Yeah, cool. All right, I'm happy you liked it. Well, welcome to the channel. I'm super excited to have you on. I mean, for the most part, we've been wanting to have this conversation, especially in front of people, just to kind of get the conversation out there. I mean, I love your background and everything you do, kind of like how you've lived your life up until now. I mean, if I missed anything, is there anything that I missed?
No, I feel like you seriously hit like most of the topics.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, speaking of topics, we have a couple of things to talk about today. I mean, but before we got on here, we were talking about Maxi, and in between our conversation last night, the Maximus team actually dropped the team and the base white paper. So that's exciting because ultimately that's going to be something that we can take advantage of. We're gonna watch. I'm gonna tell you a lot about it today because I did my prep work. I got my notes here. I did my math, and I actually have some cool numbers that you might be interested in. I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. I've seen a few people on YouTube talk about it. So the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about was really Maxi versus Hex, right? So I mean, you're invested in Hex, right? You're invested in Maxi. You're a little familiar with it too, I assume. But the real question I wanted to talk about was really what gets you a better deal, right? What's going to get us a better deal? When we're talking about Maxi and Hex, there's two things that we're doing, right? If we're buying Hex to stake and then we're going to get access to T shares through Hex, we're doing it individually. We're not using the Maximus protocol, right? So um, we're kind of using the rate that's available in the open market and the T-share rate in USD terms. That's what we're using to get our T-shares. But with Maxi though, we're using kind of a different math because the T-shares are already preset. We're buying a percentage of T-shares that were already acquired. Does that make sense? So the question was, and it's funny because I was talking to some of the guys in Spaces yesterday, and we were saying, what's actually going to give you a better deal? Is it going to be staking or purchasing Maxi? Well, is it going to be staking or purchasing Maxi? I mean, I wanted to do the math with you here if you had some time. Well, I mean, we have more than enough time, but if we wanted to talk about that for a few minutes to kind of just tell the people what's the better deal with between Maxi and Hex. First of all, tell me a little bit about Maxi. Like, what do you like about it? For those people who are maybe watching right now that don't know what Maxi is, if you can kind of just explain it to them very quickly, and then we'll kind of get into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was maybe like a month ago. There was a time period where you could put your hex in and get Maxi back, basically. And what they did with all of that hex is they put it in a stake for the 5555. So it was this big stake of all of this hex. And the point of it was, at least in my head, was that you were going to be able to get bigger returns because there was more hex on it.
No, it's 100% right. I believe I participated. I got in on the. Were you able to pledge?
Yep, I was.
Okay, cool. All right, yeah, I got in. What was the rate though? I forgot. I think it was like at 12 cents
Yeah.
when it was minted, if I'm not mistaken. When all the Maximum is minted, Hex was around 12 cents. And we should probably pull that up real quick. Let me go ahead and open up the Maximus Cash website. But yeah, this was some of the math that I was doing yesterday. Was like, what's better right now, and some of the trade-offs that we're dealing with. Because when we're getting into Maxi, and which we're gonna get a little bit deeper into as well. I know that Rachel, she has some information that she has ready for us, to kind of break down her favorite parts about Maxi code, what she likes so much about it, And yeah, I mean, right now, what I kind of wanted to talk about was that, right? Like that calculation between understanding how much we're getting if we're gonna put, let's say, for example, $1,000 into Maximus, or just buying hex, $1,000 of hex, and then staking that independently. I mean, both of which would have to be a max length stake. So of course you have to be open to doing a 5-5-5-5 stake. But there are some trade-offs, and we'll kind of get into that. So as what I see here in the dashboard, there is. Let me share my screen too, because I think the people would love to see this. So
yes, I do. I want to see it.
Yeah. So let's see how much. Cool. So boom. Yeah, take my big head out the way. All right. So we have here in the treasury, there's a total of 308 million hex. And as far as interest gained, 13 million of that is interest. The original amount that we minted, I believe we can find somewhere over here. Yeah, here we go. The total maxi supply. So remember, because in the very beginning of that 14-day period, it was a 1x to 1 maxi mint phase. The amount of maxi was the exact same amount of hex that was put into the protocol. So 294.3 million maxi was created, and that gave us around 42,104 T-shares. We can kind of do some math there as well and figure out how much we got, like what the rate of that was. But let me see. Do you remember? Actually, yeah, here's the day. It was on day 880. So this is also really cool for you guys too, who maybe you haven't, or maybe if you're new and you haven't kind of learned how to go through all of the different. Oh, actually, you know what? Daily stats. Wait, what's that website again? It's let me see. I have it here. It's hex stats. Yeah. This is where you can find hex daily stats. Beautiful. Yeah, this is it. Okay, cool. And then we can find the T-share rate for day 880. So day 880, the hex T-share rate in terms of hex was 21,670 hex per T-share. So if that was the amount of T-shares that were placed, I mean, we probably have to do more math considering the amount of math was put in there. I mean, not really actually, because that would give us our bonus, right? Well, yeah, probably we would. Okay, let's do this right then. Let me go ahead and open up. Go to hex. Connect the wallet. And get some privacy here going real quick. And then let me make sure that we have that information opened up so everyone can see it. Oh, new updates to MetaMask. Cool. It's always good to know. Let's see here. Yeah, let's open up one of these. Let's go to stakes. All right. So let's use this wallet. And let's kind of put that number in there. So if we have 294 million maxi, we had at that moment 294 million hex. And this was the amount of effective hex that we got in order to calculate exactly how much T-shares we would be receiving. So if we grab this number right here, 32 million, 323 million, 747,963, and we divide that by the T-share rate on day 880, it would give us 21,670. 21,670. Now, the idea would be how much that same stake would be giving us today. Because ultimately, I mean, you know what I was thinking, Rachel, too, because you see, hex costs so much. Hex was at on day 880. Let me see if I can add that here too. Hex price in USD terms was, how can I add this here? Hex price. Yeah, hex price on day 880, we had it at around 17 cents, right? So we only got 300 million maxi into the protocol with a 17-cent max. But imagine, price has gone down since then like almost 60, 70%, maybe more. we're at 3 cents right now. So imagine how much more hex probably would have been put into that stake if prices were this low, right? Um,
Yeah.
which is pretty crazy. It was a significant amount of money, I believe, when they put that money in there. I wish we can have that dollar value. Yeah, the treasury value on the day of. So we can actually do that. Let's do that math. So we had 294,316,330 divided by the price of hex at the time, which was 17 cents. So 0.17213. That gives us a lot of money. But I think I have the wrong number. Did I do the math right?
What's the number again?
It's three. So we have 294 million hex, right? So that the amount of hex that was put in multiplied by 17 cents. Here's the number: 294,316,330. And then the price on the day of was 17,213. So 0.17213. All right, that gives us $50,660,669. That's how much money was put into the treasury value for Maximus. And thank you so much, Funding Jim. We appreciate you, man, for that super chat. Glad to see you outreach. Looking forward to learning from the stream. Thank you so much, man. We appreciate you for that as well. And so we have 50 million hex that was put in on that day. So I kind of want to do that math to kind of show people how much it would be worth today. Because if we have $50 million and we divide that by today's hex price, that's 0.0397, we would have had instead 1.27 billion hex with the same dollar value put into that Maximus contract, which is pretty crazy, right? I mean, that just goes to show exactly how much more money could have, how much more hex probably could have been put into the, how much more hex, 1.2 billion in hex that could have been put into that Maximus contract. If you would have put 1.2 billion hex and you divide that by today's T-share, which is kind of the idea of what I want to do. So like 1.2 billion divided by, and we have here a T-share price of $907. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, I'm doing that wrong. It was 1.2 billion divided by. I need to make sure I'm doing this math right because I think I'm confusing myself.
Okay.
Yeah. I need your help here. All right. So
Okay.
what I'm trying to figure out is exactly how much Maxi we would have if the same dollar value was put in at today's T-shirt rate. So think $50 million.
Okay.
Divided by $907, it would be around 55,000 T-shares. We're now hit or miss, just for the sake of time. We're going to take a hit on the bonus shares that we would have gotten. But if we can compare those two numbers, so 42,107 T-shares divided compared to 55,000 T-shares, I think that shows you the opportunity there in being able to get a better rate for USD terms for your T-shares, which is why I think people maybe want to consider, right, kind of when they're getting into Maximus or when they're getting into Hex, exactly how much extra T-shares they're going to be receiving. Because if you can get even 20% more T-shares by staking independently, you're going to get 20% more, well, not 20% more, but technically if you have 20% more T-shares, you multiply those T-shares times that daily payout for the amount of time that you're doing it for, that's a lot of money. You're earning way more money. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it is. And then it also adds a whole nother like spectrum to it that like what if they did multiple maxi stakes like this, well, on the hex. And so instead, it happened at what, 12-ish cents or whatever? Or was it 17?
17 cents, yeah.
So it happened at 17 cents. So what if they did these stakes, maybe once a year or quarterly or, whatever it is? That would really help with, dollar cost averaging across the board of things.
That sounds interesting. I mean, it's really up to the Maximus team to see what they're going to do. With the Maxi stakes, because right now we know we have the 15-year Maxi stake. We have the 1-year perpetual stakes that are soon to be releasing, right? They just announced the white paper yesterday. And then, I mean, as far as what comes after that, that's interesting to know. But I think the biggest thing that we have to consider, right? So for those of you watching, the biggest thing you have to consider is that increase in T-shares that you're receiving by staking independently right now with Hex as opposed to using Maxi. Is it worth having? Is it worth not having your Hex liquid, right? And now I think I'm a little bit biased because I have both, right? I have some Maxi and I have some Hex. Um, but it is something that as a new person I struggle to kind of think about. Would I prefer having Maxi over Hex when I first started? Like, I mean, we didn't really have the choice when Hex was around, when we were investing. But now
Yeah.
having that choice, right? Having that option, what would you do? Do you think that you would go the Maxi route first, or would you go the Hex route?
I feel like if I was just starting, Maxi would maybe seem like a safer bet in the fact that it is in a bigger stake. Because, whatever I was investing would not be that like $50 million or whatever it is, you know? And so I think that Maxi would seem like a better option. But as you and I have talked like yesterday and then going through this right now, it seems like it's a better deal to just do your own hex stake. And I have my own hex stakes already. And so maybe I am biased, like, oh, I would, you know. But there is that side of
No,
things too.
very true. No, I mean, I think the liquidity aspect of it is really cool. I mean, the design of Hex originally was meant to, help you save yourself from yourself, which I hope really people kind of understand. I think almost like being forced to not touch your money is a good thing. Because I mean, if you're anything like me, I'm a little bit impulsive sometimes. But sometimes I might touch an investment a little bit too early, but that really does affect you when you look at the returns, like the 6 million X that people did on Bitcoin, right? Like traders weren't able to get that. Traders unfortunately weren't able to experience that 6 million X return. That some people were able to experience with Bitcoin
Yeah.
because they were buying and selling throughout that entire process. So they were essentially diluting themselves just by participating in that trading, as opposed to just saving themselves from themselves and holding, kind of like how Maxi is teaching people to do, but giving them the benefit through holding a liquid stake. And then how Hex forces you to do, right? Through the protocol itself, and instead you get as opposed to getting penalized. I mean, I think whatever people decide to choose, it really does come down to their financial plan, right? And kind of like what they're focused on. And something that I've always loved talking about too is the idea of, where you are in life, right? And where, kind of like your financial plan is taking you. I spoke to a few people, and I kind of wanted to ask you this about you as well. Maybe when you're talking to your father with your family, how did that conversation go between people who were a little bit older and people who are younger, kind of like more life ahead of them, right? When wanting to stake their hex, right? How did they want to set up their ladders? Where did you see like younger people staking most of their money to further along, or how did that play out for you?
Yeah. So, like my dad helps me with everything, right? And so I
Yeah.
just did what he said. He was like, you should do the max length stake. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And so that's what I told all my friends. And all of them did exactly that. So all of my friends, were in our early 20s and we ended up doing that for that. Did I just freeze?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. And so yeah, so for like the younger people that I've been talking to, they have been doing that, like the longer stakes. But then my dad's a great example of this. He did different stakes for different periods of time. So he did one for like a year, and then a couple of years, and then 7 years, and then 10 years, and 15 years. So he kind of like spread his out, which I thought was smart just because, he's in his 50s and that's just the way that he wanted to go. And as I've like seen my grandparents get into crypto too, I've seen them do that as well. That they've um, kind of elongated it and been able to like get in with stakes that are earlier than that 15-year stake.
Yeah. No, it's really good. I took the route of going for putting more money further out, and then deciding to, I guess, put a little bit less money up close. Ultimately, I kind of just I started thinking of my life. I started thinking about like, hey, maybe kids one day, or my family, right? Like, and I started focusing on like my age throughout each year. So I think it was so I'm 24 now. So after 6 years, I'd be 30. After around 10 years, I'd be like 36. I'm sorry, 34. So like considering those numbers, I was like, okay, what would I like to do for like a birthday present? And it's funny, it reminds me kind of how Abit kind of did his. Abit's stakes his end every month in October. So every year in October, his stakes end on his birthday. And he was posting this on Instagram the other day,
That's awesome.
and I kind of did the same thing. My birthday's in December, and I was like, damn, getting like a really big hex stake in December of your birthday would be super freaking cool, and that's how I kind of set them up. So I did mine like that, and then I had some fun with it too. Of course, with some max length stakes, but the process of doing it was so fun. Just kind of getting involved. When Maxi ended up coming out, I think it did open a lot of doors for a lot more people. A conversation that I don't know if maybe you had with a lot of people was, damn, but I have to lock it up for that long. Like for me, I feel like 15 years didn't feel like a long time. It is a long time, of course, but relatively speaking, like I think 30 years is longer, right? That if that was your max length stake, I think that would be a long time. I think 15 years is kind of like
Yeah.
that sweet spot. You know what I mean? So it didn't really feel like too long. So when people kind of talk about pushing their stakes out that far and they're hesitant about it, they're talking to me about 3 years, 2 years, right? That's the first thing I get when I talk to a new friend about it. So considering that, how do you think that the new base 1 year perpetual stakes is going to go as far as like popularity with people, like the younger generation, the older generation? How do you think that's going to play out?
Oh, I think it's brilliant because it will be able to onboard a whole different sector of people that want to do. I mean, I feel like a year is honestly even a long time in itself if you think about it. But I think it will be really good because it will draw a specific type of person that wants to do a shorter amount of time.
Yeah, very true. I think, and you're right, a year is a long time, but when you think about cryptocurrency, I feel like a year is barely anything because of the way that the market cycles work, right? Almost like a full cycle is 4 years. And so
Uh-huh.
considering a 4 year cycle, I mean, if I've already been, I believe, almost 2 cycles now. I'm going on my second cycle, and
Wow.
I've only been involved with crypto for around 4 or 5 years. So thinking about that, like that 4 year, that's why I feel like 15 years wasn't that much. I don't know if it was just me or what, but that's why I feel like it was because the 4 year cycle that you kind of experience with the crypto market cycle, it's kind of like, oh, okay, it's only really like 3, 4 cycles that I have to go through until I get that stake done. But it's ultimately the result after those 3, 4, or 5 cycles, like what's going to come about that. Some people haven't even been in cryptocurrency for an entire cycle, so that's why I think the popularity of that 1 year base perpetual stake is probably gonna be very big. Do you think it'll match the 300 million that we saw in um in Maxi, or do you think the hex price being lower now, kind of like how we did that math, do you think it'll actually allow for more hex to be or for more base to be minted?
Ooh, that's a great question. I haven't thought of that. I hope that it means that there will be more hex coming in because it is so low. That would be awesome. But yeah, that's a great question. What do you think?
So I think we did that. Well, the math I told you about, the popular math,
Yes.
right? It came out to be like around, I think it was so I did the example of a 1 million um hex pledge, which would essentially result in a 1 million base pool. um I believe it gave me like it was 11.8% APY on a 1 million base pool. But then I did the example of a 300 million one, and that gave me around, I think it was 12.3. I put it on Twitter yesterday. I should check it out real quick. Let me see, open this up, because I kind of did like a little mini thread. This is my first thread, so if it was unorganized or missed some information, I get better every day. But let's
You
take a look at it.
started. You at least
Um,
did one.
I put it here yesterday. Yeah, so here it is. Oh no, wait, this is for the live stream. Yeah, so the thread was like this, right? It was just hypothetical examples. There I am with my little notes. But yeah, it's a 1 million base pool gave around 11.84% APY in the first year, no compounding, while a 300 million base pool gave 12.39% APY in the first year, no compounding. I think 12.3% is still good. I mean, it's not a 38 that we're getting on average, or like the 32 and growing that you're getting in Maxi, but it's still 12%. I mean, you're beating inflation according to the United States, right? You're beating inflation technically. And then I also did one with 1 year of compounding. So this was assuming in both examples that the second mint phase doubled in hex terms. Let me go ahead and share this real quick. I have to activate it on the. There we go. So here it goes, right? It's so assuming in both examples the second min phase doubled in size in hex terms, 2 million hex and 600 million hex, using the new rates for base. So that was the whole complicated part for me. I had to like recalculate the base rates because every year that base rate recalculates itself, kind of like how every year a hex stake ends. Excuse me. Every time a hex stake ends, it recalculates that last T-share rate. It does the same here on base. So technically, it would be 1.78 million base pool, giving around 24.36% divided by 2 years. It's on average 12.18% APY. So this is with the compounding effect with that smaller 2 million base pool, right? It just doubled from the previous. And then if we doubled from 300 million to 600 million in hex terms, it would give us a base pool of 533.8 million base, which is around 25.64, and that gave around almost 13%. So it was 12.82% compounding. So the compounding could actually, result in better returns. I'm pretty sure if you push it out, 5 years, you're probably going to end up with maybe like a 13, 14, 15% APY, which honestly isn't all that bad. I have some stakes that are locked away for 2 years, maybe 3 years, that they're doing that same rate, and here you have them relatively liquid, right? You're holding a base coin and you're going to be able to keep those on. So I mean, I think it's beneficial, definitely. But yeah, you think that's enough? 13, 14%?
Well, you did make a good point. It is around, what inflation is, right? So hopefully it will be enough. But also, I mean, if you invest your money in anything else, where are you going to make those types of returns anyways?
Yeah, I mean, you really can't find it. You really can't find that type of return anywhere else, especially with that overhead. Like, you're not, and with the exponential growth that we're seeing, hopefully, right, and no expectations in the next 2 years, 3 years. No, yeah, I definitely agree with you. I would do it. I mean, I think if you're already maybe doing it, something like you and me, this is just my personal opinion. I would consider it because I wouldn't kind of like dilute my investments by maybe gaining like a lesser APY. I'm cool with the way I'm earning APY right now, but I think it's for somebody, and that's the beauty of what the Maximus team is doing, is that they're giving people options. Like, these derivatives are giving more options than just locking away your hex, and not being able to touch it. It's putting people in a position to where they can sell their hex if they need to, or excuse me, sell their maxi if they need to for whatever case of an emergency without having to take that big penalty. And also, that money doesn't get extracted from hex overall. It doesn't add any selling pressure to hex, which is absolutely great. I like that. That's cool. Well, something I wanted to ask you too is I know you prepared something. I know you prepared your maxi audit, and I know you wanted to talk a little bit about it. Specifically, I wanted to ask you, like, if you can show us the Maximus contract. But more importantly, what's your favorite part about it? So I know you're from a coding background, and that's what you like that's your space. What's your favorite part about the maxi contract? Like, right, what out of everything that you saw in it, what do you like the most about it? And you can share
So,
your screen if you want to. I'm pretty sure you're allowed to, but if you want to, go ahead.
okay, that would be awesome. So the first time I went through it, I've been coding since I was 13, so 11 years, and I have gone through so many different code bases where it was actually really hard to read the code and figure out what it was. So when I first went into the Maximus code, I was like, okay, well, this is probably going to take me some time to go through and figure it out. And I was able to read through it in like one sitting, which was very surprising to me.
How long have you
And
been sitting for? You, not to interrupt you, but is it like an
it was
hour?
it was probably like half an hour to an hour.
Oh, okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, so it was super quick, and I actually like understood what was going on because I had previously done it. I was like, oh, I went in and I minted, and like as you go through the code, you can actually like place yourself and be like, oh my gosh, I did this. And then there's like an ending stake phase within one of like the functions, and it's like, okay, well, this is what they're going to call. This is what's going to be called
Mm-hmm.
when the stake is supposed to end. So I just thought that it was very interesting being like a first-hand user of it and then you reading the code because it made sense.
How important do you think it is for someone to learn how to read code when getting in cryptocurrency? Because there's so many different levels when it comes to getting involved. Like there are people who don't know anything. There's people who have a really vast understanding of digital technology, right, blockchain technology, and just code altogether. Like how important do you think it is for someone to maybe kind of just at least learn a little bit about coding?
I think it's very important for everyone to learn a little bit about it,
Mm.
even if it's not in crypto, because this is where our world's going. And like when we have kids and like when they're growing up, like they're going to be in elementary school and they're going to be learning how to code. And it's like, okay, well, are you going to be able to help them with their coding homework? you know?
True. Oh, I haven't
Um,
thought about that.
yeah. So hopefully I'll be a great candidate for that. But yeah, and so I think it's really important just because it is where our world is going, and it is an asset that you can add to your tool belt that can make you dangerous in whatever situation. So, I just pulled up the Maxi website and I can just go through super quick, read the code and be like, okay, well, yeah, I like understand what it's doing based off of the code. So I think it's a valuable skill, not even just in crypto, but it does give you an edge in crypto because, not a ton of people know how to code. And a lot of people just talk about the financial side, which is needed. But, any project can market how it wants. And how do you actually know it's going to do that unless you look at the code?
Very true. As far as auditing, though, for those of you who don't know auditing and what it is, it's pretty much like uncovering the actual code itself and really reading it through, making sure it's doing what it says it's supposed to do, right? You can't just kind of read the website and someone tell you, hey, this is what our coin does. I think a lot of brand new people are starting to do that. Or a lot of people do that typically when it comes to like investing in new assets. So it's really good when you have that expertise and what something's actually doing by looking at the code itself. Companies do audits, like how Maximus had a few companies do audits, but today we're doing Rachel's audit, which is really cool. So this is Rachel's audit for Maximus, guys.
Okay, awesome. So you just go to maximus.cash, and then for this specific project, it's in GitHub. And there are simple things that you can do as just a normal person that doesn't know how to code. You can always go into their coding repository, which is where they hold their code. So like, for example, this is GitHub. And if you go down, there is something called a README. And it will kind of go over, what to do or what the project is. Right here in Maximus, it just tells you how to connect to testnet. So then you can test it out. So it was actually really cool. I was able to go in and play with this on testnet before I ever even did it like with my real hex,
Yeah.
which was neat. So always look at the README, even if you don't code, because you can get a lot of information from those. There's been several projects where I've looked into them, and I actually learned more from the README because it went more in depth and explained things in a way that wasn't like a marketing tool. So something to look at. But if we come in here, we have the Maximus.sol, which means it's in Solidity.
Mm-hmm.
And something else that I really like about this project is it is so well commented. And what that means is, right here you can see that there's code. But then as we scroll down, you can see that they have put the time and effort into explaining what is happening. So it shows that they have thought out what they're doing. Something else about Maximus that I really like too is it's really short. So I'm going to scroll down. So sorry if this makes anyone feel sick, but it's not very long. It's only 274 lines of code. I've worked at companies where there were millions of lines of code. So being less than 300 is a big deal if it's like a whole project of things. But like, as you can see right here, there's just different comments. And these comments tell you exactly what's going to happen. Within just programming standards, how they have programmed certain things, it is like the correct way to do it. It's the proper way to code it. So I was impressed in that way because, with coding, you can do one thing like 10 different ways. And so how they went through and coded certain things, I was like, oh, like that totally makes sense. And that was probably the appropriate thing of like the coding syntax. So that was cool seeing that.
From like the way that they coded?
the
Is there anything that you particularly
prettiness,
learned?
this is going to sound weird, but the prettiness of the code like really checked off. So like the code is very aesthetically pleasing, which means that they put time into it because code does not look like that by itself. So that's one of the first things that I really liked. And then let's see, I wanted to show
Is there anything that you learned particularly from the code itself?
function. So as you can see, they're called functions right here, but what a function is it is broken out of the code just to do a very specific thing. So like we can look at this one right here on line 144. So this function right here, it gets the hex day. So it goes in, it grabs the current day, and then returns the day to whatever calls this function right here. So it can be super simple, but it can also be a little more complicated. Like if we come down here to the pledge hex, there's a little bit more going on here, right? So it just depends on, you know,
So
what
that was
needs
the
to be
minting
done.
phase, right?
And then let's see. Sometimes I like get all turned around in code, and I think I am right now. Yeah, okay, so we're back to the start. So if we scroll down just a little bit, we have all of this right here. And these are just initiations of different variables. So, you know how we were talking earlier about like the day, the specific day, and the specific price, and the specific t-shirt price. Like those all have to be set out and be given values. And so this is just where that happens. So super neat and organized. This actually would probably be a good thing to come in and look at is what addresses are they actually using for the hex address and the hedron address, and then also the MAXI address. Because, you know, they could be saying they're using specific ones and then they're actually not. So there's that. And then as we go down, let's see. Also, if you have any questions, feel free.
Yeah, can you hear me?
To jump in.
Can you hear me by any chance? Hey, can you hear me?
Okay, so right here. So this is the minting phase. So we can tell from the comments because it says it's the minting phase. But as we read through this, so right here, it calls the variable and it sees if the minting phase is done. So that was the first check, which was great. And then if the minting phase wasn't done, then it would continue on with the code. Mm-hmm. So then it gives us, it looks at the MAXI address and it says, please approve contract address as allowed spender in the hex contract. And then it comes down here and then it goes to that hex contract and then sends the MAXI address and the amount. And then it goes in and calls the mint function. So see how this says mint right here? Then it calls it up here and it will mint it. And it will mint the amount that you gave. So it's really cool, very straightforward, which I really have just appreciated. And so yeah, so I really like the MAXI code. It's so easy to read. And just moving forward, I hope that more projects are this simple because a lot of them aren't. And that's okay. Like, you know, if you're going to be making a whole blockchain, like it's not going to be that simple. Like a project like MAXI is going to be simple. But yeah, so that is my 2 cents.
Cool. Can you hear me?
I can now.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, I guess I was trying to say stuff while I was trying to talk to you. For whatever reason, it didn't go through. But no, thank you for that. Honestly, it made so much sense. And for the most part, one of my biggest questions for you while you were saying what you were saying was was there anything in particular that you learned from the way that they coded everything?
Ooh, did I learn anything? That's a good question. I learned that they were very straightforward, and they didn't like mess around. They just did exactly what they needed to do, and so I thought that was very impressive.
That's cool. Have you ever found like any type of code before that you've been auditing that they hide something within the code? Have you ever seen anything like that before?
Oh gosh, you would never believe just like the things and the passwords and just weird crap that people put on their websites, and it's like, okay, like you shouldn't be putting like passwords to get into specific things. I don't know if you know this, but if you're on like Google Chrome, you can, and other browsers as well, but you can inspect Yes, you can
Yeah.
inspect the code. And yeah, I've because sometimes like I'll see a color or like I see a specific like way that they'll do something and I think it's really cool. And so I
Mhm.
want to go and see like what their code is behind it. And like I said, just weird crap. Like
Yeah.
and personal stuff sometimes too. I'm like, I don't think this is a personal website. Like but it's okay. It's
That's
funny.
interesting. No, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, thank you so much for that. I mean, I guess the entire object of it was to show people how confident you are, not just in like understanding it, but knowing that you're putting your money behind it because you understand it, right? Like, I honestly I respect it so much, and that's why I've told you about my journey with learning how to code and stuff like that, and I'm going through HTML and all that good stuff. Right? I won't get into it because it's not about me, but what I will say is that like I'm doing my best to do that, not because I want to go out and become like a coder or or maybe build my own blockchain. I don't know what's in store for me, right? I don't want to like speak that into existence, but what I will say is that I do like the idea of feeling more comfortable doing my own research. And I think that's something I tell all my students all the time. Like I'm like, yo, do your own research, right? People can rely on me because I know that if I'm giving you something, I've done my research to give it to you to begin with, right? So it's pretty valid if I'm gonna give it to you to begin with. But ultimately, right? What if I'm not there one day, right? Or what if you find something new that you want to build your own opinion on? And I think that's what it's all about. The fact that it's not just about learning from someone, but finding that independence and feeling comfortable in making your own investments, right? We don't like to kind of like give financial advice or anything, so it's very tough to jump between the lines. But ultimately, what I always say is like find a way to become better at understanding this information. And one of those ways, if you want to take it above and beyond, would be doing like how you do, right? Looking at the code, auditing it, maybe even going into the audit of an auditor, right? So, like how we were saying on Maximus, there's a few auditors who audited the Maxi code already. Go look into that document and read through it. Like, what does it say? What does it say about Maxi? What did they prove, right, to be true? And if you can do that, I think the more examples of it over time that we do it for, I think the better we're gonna kind of be at nitpicking between, hey, this is where maybe I want to hold my assets. This is where I want to diversify when it comes to blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, digital assets, versus other projects like Shiba or anything like that. Where I'm not saying they're bad, but ultimately they have a different goal, right?
Yeah.
At least with these, you know what they're doing, you know what they're providing, and how they're built and what's backing them. So thank you so much for that audit. I appreciate it, Rachel. You're a rock star. That was really great. If you guys have any questions in the chat for Rachel, please go ahead and ask her. Uh, I think something that I wanted to kind of go into because we do have a little bit of time. There's a couple things that I wanted to hit on at the end, but I wanted to hit on a little bit of base and team. Were you able to look into it at all?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Well, it's your lucky day. I did. So I went ahead and I looked into it last night. And I'm not gonna lie. Once again, it's the white paper is pretty clear, right? Maybe not as clear as the actual code because of course the code is just going to be very straightforward. I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to be when they release the code for base and team. But they did talk a little bit about what makes them incentivize one another, right? So I'll go ahead and do this. You can still hear me, right?
Yes, I can.
Cool, cool, cool. Now, yeah, just in case, you never know. All right, let's look here. So let's go to Maximus DAO, and then let's find this white paper. So yeah, the white paper for base and team, it's on Medium. I'm actually gonna post it in the chat for you guys to check out if you guys want to check it out yourself. And so yeah, so I'll kind of give you a gist. I'm not gonna go over the entire document, but it's fairly simple, right? First you kind of go over team. You have to kind of go over base to understand team, right? Because base is very very simple to understand from like a what is it perspective, right? What is it perspective? It's a 1 year perpetual stake. So every year, right, there's a mint phase for this token called base. The first year it's a 1-to-1 mint. So that first year that you go ahead and you want to access mint, so this first year that's going to happen, this first launch, it's going to be one base for one hex. That's pretty much how it is. And then that goes and turns the hex in that base pool into a 365-day stake. Once that stake is over, you have two options. You can either claim your base, right? You can either claim your base or excuse me, you can either claim your yield from base, excuse me, so you essentially give back your base, or you can keep your base and then it rolls over. And this is what creates that compounding effect that I was telling you about, right? When I mentioned yield though, the interesting part about base is that you're not going to be receiving hedron yield. You're only going to be receiving um, yield from the hex stake that's created, that 365-day stake. And a little bit is actually taken away from you. And so this is something where I think it kind of gets interesting because, so I don't know if you remember, but we were talking about like the effective hex that you get from the bigger pays better bonus at the very beginning. All
Yeah.
right, so half of that effective hex from the bigger pays better bonus, the T shares that mints, those hex tokens are going to be given to team, right? Plus the hedron. So all the hedron and half of the bigger pays better bonus shares that produce that yield, that's what's given to team stakers. And so that's base and a gist, but I wanted to focus a little bit more on team because team kind of has more to do with uh, the Maximus. Excuse me, team kind of has more to do with like with Maximus, considering the fact that to get team you have to be a part of Maximus. So I think you would appreciate this because this game theory is actually really cool. So it says here, this type of incentive-based bonus sharing creates a scenario where team stakers have a huge incentive to grow the size of base staking, of the base stake. If the base stake is small, the team stakers will earn very little. The larger the base stake, the more lucrative team staking becomes. Since base is intended to be the primary liquidity pair for all future Maximus stake pools, incentivizing base growth will help bolster a stronger liquidity foundation amongst the various Maximus stake pools that we plan to launch. So off the bat, you kind of get an understanding that, okay, they want base to be something that you can create, like have as a opposite to Maximus in liquidity pools. So essentially you can get base for Maxi, right? Like that swap is what they're looking at it as, and that's an incentive to base holders. If you hold base, you can put it in liquidity pools and earn fees, right? You can earn yield, so you have yield potential, you have interest potential, right, from liquidity pools, and then ultimately, right, if you participate in team, then you're also incentivized because the bigger that the base stake is, the more that you get as a team holder. So it's this crazy game theory that I think would make more sense in a video. So I'm not going to go too crazy into it right now because, of course, we're going over Maxi. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting because, you know, Maxi was a standalone product, but now we have Base, which has team attached to it. And that dynamic is really interesting. And I want to see kind of like what the community says over the next couple of like weeks in regards to, you know, how they're looking at Base, the incentives, and how that works. And I always valued the community's opinion because, you know, ultimately Maximus isn't going to tell us what to do, right? No financial advice. But if we can, hopefully soon in the future, if you'd like to be on for that too, we can kind of go over like some people's like you know, kind of analysis about how base and team work together. I think that would be interesting. I'm still learning every day, so I have no problem from understanding what other people are saying. But yeah, if you want to, that'd be really cool. What do you think?
Yeah, count me in. That's awesome.
All right, for sure, for sure. Yeah, we'll definitely send you the invite then. But yeah, you know, so that's something that I really like a lot about the fact that this Maximus community is growing and that they're creating new innovative products. They're really pushing they're really pushing the envelope when it comes to that. And as an investor, you know, I'm here for it. Right? No expectations. I'm ready.
Yeah.
So
Do you
yeah,
think you ever start your own project?
yeah, that's a really good question. I really hope one day I could because I'm super passionate about blockchain, and I think that if I have a good idea that pops up in my head, I would hope that I could execute on it. So I definitely think that if it came up in an opportunity, whether it be like with a team of coders or something like that, and we came up with something really powerful, that yeah, and ultimately it would have to stick to the um, almost like the guidelines of how Hex was created, right? Like immutable code, you know, trustless, something around that area where I wouldn't want to have responsibility for anything. I would want for the protocol, for the code to be what's trusted. And as long as we can maintain it around that, then yeah, I would definitely love to, for sure. Yeah. I mean, how about you? I'll
Oh
give you
my
the
gosh.
same question.
So I don't know about me personally, but my dad is so funny. He comes up with things every day. He's like, we should do this, and he and I would be his developer. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I trust myself enough for that.
Yeah. But he
But
shot you
yeah,
some good ideas.
yeah. Him and my mom have always wanted to do microloans
Hmm.
for just people around the world that are less fortunate and live in more like third world countries. And so they've actually been thinking about that and giving people money through microloans through crypto. So
Mm.
it'll be an interesting thing. I'm sure my parents will do that, and I'm sure I'll be involved in some way.
That's interesting. That's really cool. I like that. Well, we'll
Yeah,
definitely get your update on that in the next couple of years. We'll see how that plays out for you guys. I really
yeah,
like this. I mean, I really hope you guys like if you're speaking it into existence, it's for a reason. Especially if they're
yeah.
really excited about it. I wouldn't doubt it. Well, let me ask you something, right? I mean, we talked a little bit about Maxi and we've talked about Hex and like the value of the T shares and we've kind of gone over a lot. We're about 15 minutes in, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the current state of the economy right now and like how everything is doing because we can't ignore the fact that we're talking about an ecosystem that is going down, right? If that's the right way to say it. It's bearish, right? It's not going up, right? It's not going up and to the right. It's going down and to the right. And everything is, right? The markets are reflexive, as we know. They're speculative. Things happen in the market, and it is what it is. But ultimately, the sentiment of the people changes heavily throughout it. And I think the way that you think in a bullish market versus the way that you think in a bearish market changes often. I wanted to kind of opinion about people who right now that were very just maybe very comfortable during the bull market and right now are starting to experience like the hardships of what a bear market can be like. Like, what advice would you have for those people right now?
Oh, so I think this kind of goes a little further back, but it's important when you invest in crypto to have goals. Because if you don't have goals and if you don't write them down, when you're in a place like this, it gets hard,
Mm,
especially if you need that money and then the money's not there because it's, you know, in a bear market.
yeah.
And so um, when I invested almost, oh my gosh, 4 years ago, I just invested and honestly, I don't think I looked at my accounts for a year. And I invested in a bear market. And so the prices of everything were super low. And even within like, it was crazy. The first week that I invested, I bought Ethereum to trade into other coins and it actually doubled, which was crazy. But moving forward, when I onboard people, when I onboard, my family and my friends, I always talk about, having that goal, having a reason of why you're investing, and if you are in it for, the long or short. And like me
Right.
personally, I am not a trader at all. I've never actually made one trade. I have only invested. And so that's kind of what I tell them. I tell them about my story and like where I've come from with it. And it's like, I haven't cashed out on anything ever because my goal is a long term trade, and with everything else in my life, like I don't need the money because I have a career that is able to support me, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone's in that spot, but in these times of, I don't even want to say trouble, like this is normal. In
Yeah.
these times of like a lower market, it can be um, just a little like shaky, and it's okay because this was predicted. We've seen this happen before, and we've seen it go up from where we're at to, and so just to have hope for the future and to not be rattled. Don't look at your accounts every single day. Like that will stress the heck out of you. Don't do that. And just moving forward, like if you don't have a goal, put a goal in place of why you did invest and just where you're going from that.
Cool. Set goals, have a focus. I like that. I like the fact that you said that it's okay. The markets get shaky. And the reason why I said that the markets right now are kind of tend to be like in a little bit more of a negative sentiment. I would say more so because oftentimes people look at the overall economy and kind of like how you go through a recession or expansion in the market, and people, they associate that with bad and good, right? But almost like but this is something to cause that differentiation. I'm happy you mentioned it, right? Because in crypto, people are open to bear markets. Like people accept them. People want them to happen. And it's very different from what you see in other markets where when a recession happens, everybody's like, "Oh no, we can't spend, we can't do anything," right? Like it's very negative. The conversation or almost like the bias becomes very negative or it not that it does, but it can and so people become more reserved. I think it does happen in its own respect with cryptocurrency, but overall, we view it differently, right? We are open to having a bear market happen. We know that things need to come back down after they've gone up, and we know that they eventually will go up after they've come down. And so I'm happy that you mentioned that because one thing is it's very hard to teach that. It's very hard to kind of like show people exactly how it happens, specifically because of the time that it takes for it to happen. And
Yeah.
so time in the market beats timing the market, right? That's the famous saying. And I suppose that's why you're not a trader. That's why I stopped trading myself personally too. Because ultimately that it's just easier. How do you feel like well, let me phrase it like this. Do you feel like buying and holding has caused any type of stress for you? I know you don't look at your coins, but do you think it's caused any type of stress for you at all by after like since you started investing?
The only time I get stressed is when like my funds are like held or something like that. And then,
Okay.
it takes a little while to trade, or it's like I should have invested in something. It's like I had been thinking about it, and then this actually happened like 2 months ago where I was waiting for gas fees to go down a little bit because it was just so high. There it was like so unreasonable, okay? And the specific coin that I was like watching, it doubled and I hadn't bought into it. I was like, oh, dang it. So I think that's the only stress is maybe more regret. But, you win some, you lose some. And I think that's the best way to look at it
Mm-hmm.
because, like, you're seriously not going to get in on everything. And you're not going to always, you're going to buy the high sometimes. And, and it's okay. Like,
Yeah,
it
I feel
really
you.
is because it will hopefully even itself out with other things. And I've seen it even itself out with other things for myself. um, but yeah, and so I don't know. It's interesting being in times like this because I mean I've seen it on Twitter that people are freaking out, and I know that a lot of people that their livelihoods are in crypto, and I think that goes down to like diversification is important. That you
Mm.
shouldn't have everything in crypto.
So
I'm
let me
probably
ask
the
you that,
worst.
right? Like if someone just got involved with crypto, you don't recommend them clearly. You don't recommend them to get, based on what you're saying, to get fully exposed into cryptocurrency. Why not? Why do you think that's such a bad thing? Like, what can happen from your experience, knowing and from what you've seen? What can happen if you fully expose yourself to cryptocurrency like that?
Well, you see these highs and lows. And honestly, I'm probably a really bad person to talk about this because
Mm-hmm.
I right now, so I work for a company, so I do their 401k and get their match and everything. But I put a lot of my money into crypto, and I can't even tell you how many times where I've like thrown money into something and it literally went to like a third of what I put in or something,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Like that is a okay. Um, but there's risk. And if you do any research on financial investments, every single place that you look is going to tell you that cryptocurrency is the riskiest type of investment. I think it's risky to not invest into crypto, to be real. Because why
Say
would
that
you not
again.
get yeah, why would you not be getting into the game this early on, right? So I think it's a risk to not get into crypto, but you have to be very wise with where you put your money and you can't be emotionally attached to it. And that's
Yeah.
something that I've like seen in my life as well as other people's lives. It's like, if it does tank, then it's like, okay, well, better luck next time.
Right. No, that's powerful. I really like that. I like your viewpoint on it. I think we share some viewpoints on there that are very similar because ultimately, I mean, I come from a background where it's a little bit more financial. And I've always, I mean, I've never, from a young age, I've never really been taught financial literacy, but it really is that. It's becoming literate with money and understanding how things work. But you have to make that distinction, right? Crypto is crypto, and then the traditional markets are the traditional markets. You can't really compare the two. Oftentimes, people try to make the comparison. People maybe jump from like real estate or stocks, and then they come into cryptocurrency, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what's going on here?" Right? Like they're
Yeah.
completely, lost for words because it's just a different type of movement. But that's why it's so important to learn and to be around, right? I tell people all the time that even after you've learned, there's still so much to learn. There's still so much that you can go in there and find out just by being around people. Like even being on a call like this, right? Like learning from your experience, someone who has a coding background and you work with a massive company, and me, right? Who I'm an independent business owner, right? I work for myself, and I do live streams, right? So,
Which is awesome.
it's like, yeah, thank you. And so it's like everybody has like their own kind of take, but I think everyone, even though they come from such different places, we're still all in the same space, and there are some things that they stay the same, like that perspective and that idea of staying in there for the long term and focusing on the bigger picture. I like that. Yeah, that's really cool. I was going to ask you this too. There's an issue right now with the rising cost of living in the United States, and ultimately it has a lot to do with inflation. I don't know how big you are on, like, are you familiar with, like, well, I'm sure you're familiar with inflation, but like how it affects the economy in the traditional markets?
Yes, I am
Yes,
a little.
you're
I
well
studied.
versed.
I studied it a little bit when I was in my master's degree,
Hmm.
um, but no, I'm sure not as much in depth as someone who like their background is finance.
Understood. Well, the reason why I brought it up is because I mean it's a fact. Things are getting a little bit more expensive, and it's not the first time that we've experienced this. Like I'm gonna be honest, I went to Chipotle when I was in high school, and bowls were $7.02. Now they're $9.30. Right? What's going on? Right? So you're seeing inflation everywhere. Things are costing more money, um, and so people right now, right, kind of like connecting that previous point about what you should do in the bear market. Do you think it's smart to double down right now and work harder, like when you're in that bear market? Like what's your focus when you're in a bear market? Does it change anyway from when you're in a bullish market? Do you kind of like put your foot on the gas more, or do you focus a little bit more on, like, everything's kind of the same way? Do you still have like that, that peaceful mindset? How do you think of things when things kind of, go into the bear market?
Yeah, so bear markets are where millionaires are made. And
Mm,
so it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do to be able to, be one of those people that gets to be a millionaire from it, right? And so it totally goes along the lines of like really like putting your face down and just grinding. And I mean, I feel like I'm in a weird position because when I first initially invested in crypto, I was still in college. And like I worked really hard when I was in college, and so I always had money to do the things that I wanted to do because I had to pay for all my own stuff. And so, like back then, I didn't have as much money to invest. But now I'm in my career. I already changed my career once, and so now I'm like in my second career path, and I have just been so blessed with just where God's put me, honestly, and just like being able to make the money that I make within this big industry and to be in a career. I'm like, this is crazy. Like we're the same age, so I'm 24 too. I'm like, I'm way too young to be like like where I'm at. And so it's interesting me being at the point that I'm at, being able to invest now compared to what I was investing before because it is more. And so like there's just so many opportunities, and even if like you just got a side gig like last year, I went and I worked for a retail store because
yeah.
honestly it was my favorite retail store and I wanted the discount. um, but I was a software developer and then I would go work nights at this retail store. Okay, and it's just getting in there and you can do like little things and it can really add up. And I know that you kind of have a similar viewpoint, so where are you at? I want to hear your opinion on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, well, for me, the perspective does change, and that's why I asked you, because I kind of wanted to see how it happened with you. For me, when I was going through the bull market, so I'll kind of tell you based on its time going to 2021, like around March, things were going well. The investments were going up. Bitcoin was doing its all-time highs. Hex as well. Hex was pushing, and I had gotten in around a year and a half previous to that, so I had gotten in with the good timing. And I was living it up. I was enjoying the money. I was enjoying the opportunity, more importantly. And it showed me that it was possible, right? It built belief. And I think that was the most important part. The fact that, if you do something and you stick to it, eventually it's going to show. Eventually it's going to show a result, right? And so when I told myself that I was going to, um, focus on this full time, I stuck to that. I really held to the fact that like cryptocurrency was going to be my full time. Then a bear market hits, right? And it kind of humbles you down. Now I was smart because you see, I took profit at the top, right? That's
Good.
the most important thing. I don't tell anybody anything. Make sure you're taking profit because if you don't take profit, you can make so much money, but you're not going to make anything if you don't take at least a piece while you're up there, right? That money would just come right back down, and yeah, the money's not yours if you don't take it out. So I did take profit, thankfully, and I set myself up for the bear market. I said, okay, how much do I have to spend throughout this time, right? And so I calculated my monthly expenses, and then I took that out of cryptocurrency and I kept that. And so that was my money to spend throughout the next year, 18 months. And so that was my focus. But now being in it, right, and having this money sitting cash, prices get lower. I'll tell you how my mindset shifted. I have all this cash that I have to spend on expenses, but now things are becoming so cheap that I don't want to spend it on what I'm expensing on. I want to put it
Right.
back into crypto, okay?
Yeah.
So that
Uh,
was the whole thing. And like right now, I mean, don't get me wrong, the plan is still in play. But what I decided to do was, of course, find other opportunities to make more money. So, right now I work with my stepdad, and that's what I personally do to be able to put more money in my pocket and to make sure, not only that I'm, like focusing on myself and my future, but ultimately that I'm still adding value. Because more importantly than like having that money and wanting to move around with it, I had a phase where I just didn't feel like I was adding enough value, right? Like I had a lot of free time and I enjoyed the free time. But you know how you kind of hear about these entrepreneurs who retire early, or how when they retire and then they get bored and they go back to work. That's kind of how I felt, right? Like I retired a little too early and I
love it.
wanted to get back to work because, once you're here, it's just like, dude, there's so much I can do. There's so many people I can help. So that's why I said, let me put my skills to work with my stepdad. Of course, let me double down on the work that I'm doing here uh, with the live stream, right? And with the course that I'm building. And so, yeah, I think right now more than ever, I'm hungry. Like I'm hungrier than ever because we're at these lows, particularly with prices, right? With market prices. And that just has me wanting to buy everything that I like up, because it's like you don't get these opportunities, and when you do get them, they go away pretty fast. I mean, let's be honest. Like, how much money can you save up in a year, right? If you just started saving up, as opposed to if you knew that the bear market was coming, you were prepared for, okay, this is going to be a really good time where all the money I make cash, I can put towards this investment. It's only stuff that after being in the investment space for years. So I guess now, even though I knew everything I knew, that has definitely shifted. I feel like next time around I'll be ready even more for the bear market. Like I was already ready. I had the cash on hand. I had everything set. But next time I'll be like, dude, the bear market is where we should all just keep grinding. We should be building. Look at everyone doing their work, right? Like look at the Maximus team. They're building during the bear market. Look at Richard. He's building during the bear market. They're creating. They're putting their skill sets to work. And so that's what I would say. That's my biggest learning opportunity there, not just like letting time go by, because that's really what it felt like. Almost you were letting time go by, and more than money, I think your time is irreplaceable. So yeah, you got
Oh
to put
yeah.
it to good use. Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
Mhm.
question for you.
What's up?
So, when I grew up, finances were always something that was talked about at home. And so, like, I have a really good relationship with my parents when it comes to talking about finances. But my parents really never taught me to invest. And, clearly my dad was the one that got me into crypto. But
Mhm.
I was always taught to save. And so, like, before I really started investing in crypto, oh, I was like the best saver ever. But now I just invest all my money and I'm like, where is it?
Yeah.
um, but I like want to hear like your viewpoint on that. Like, were you taught to invest?
Oh my God. I mean, like, look, I'm gonna be honest. My parents had no regard for investing, and I don't know if maybe it was a culture thing, but when you grow up in a Hispanic household, um, it should be a conversation. I can't even generalize it because there's so many Hispanic people that are extremely successful. But I'll say it like this: in my household, in particularly, it wasn't a conversation. My mom wasn't really saving. Honestly, we're one bad week or one bad month away from like like one tragedy away from like a really bad time. I'm gonna be honest, and thankfully, right, pray God, nothing happened, and everything played out very well, right? My upbringing, everything like that. Uh, but the reality is that if something bad were to happen, like if there was to be an accident, if there was something to go wrong, we wouldn't have been okay, right? Like it was almost paycheck to paycheck. It didn't work out. Ironically enough, my grandmother was someone who was very successful. She had a home, she had real estate, but she never really passed that down to us. And I don't know if maybe if it was because of her position in the household, like she was my grandmother. Um, and I don't know if maybe it's like it's just not a normal thing for maybe like her. Like she didn't feel like it was her responsibility to teach me about the finances.
Yeah.
Even though she was very savvy, but I don't know. I think that my mom definitely didn't give me that. My grandma knew it, but I didn't receive it, and ultimately I didn't grow up with it. And so I was in a place where like when I was 20, when I was 19, 20, 21, dude, I was spending like a madman. I was making like I was working at Apple at the time, and I was making what like $1,600 a month. Just like I was in college and making $1,600 a month, and I would spend all of it. I had debt. I wasn't doing the right things, and it wasn't until I got around a really good group of people that they started teaching me. So, you know, if maybe that person in your family that is starting to create a focus on finances, and you're the younger one, and everybody else around you isn't doing it, I think it's still very good for you to persist and push through because see there's this quote that says you can't be a prophet in your own land, right? Like you can try to
Yeah.
teach people everything
Uh-huh.
that you're learning, but they're so close to you that they won't listen, and that's kind of what was happening. I invested in Hex, I did this. I had a few friends that listened, right? I had friends who made six figures investing when I started investing, but ultimately my family didn't experience that growth. Had my family listened, they would have, but they didn't because they were already programmed to like, oh, saving like crypto, no, bro, you're crazy, right? But I had that, I was so fixated on it, and so my results ultimately changed the path that my family was headed down because now my family's investing. Now they're seeing how I'm making my living. Thankfully, I feel like I changed that course in my generation, and I'm really happy for that. And so I
That's
didn't
all.
get that. I didn't get that boost from my family from that education, but even though I got it from someone else, I made sure to give it to them regardless because sometimes I feel like people neglect that, and even though the family didn't give it to them, they don't maybe take the time to give it to them even though they never got it. I think that's so important. Like no matter how much they don't want it, keep on, like persist, like don't stop. Persistence wears down resistance, right? As they say, like they're eventually gonna want to do it, and they see the fruits of your labor, they're gonna want to experience that too. So thankfully we're really early on, and we have an opportunity like cryptocurrency where everybody can still get in, right? We're down 90% in Hex, we're down 70-60% with things like Bitcoin, Ethereum. So there's still time, but yeah, man, be that person. That's all I could say. Like be that person because I decided to be that person for my fam. I didn't have that luxury, but regardless of that, I still came out on top, and I'm proud of that. No doubt.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
and right now, time to, start building that generational wealth.
Mm.
Because, like, for me, it's like, oh, I don't care about being rich. I care about, first off, financial freedom, but then creating that generation wealth where it's like you can pass that down.
Yeah, no, it's huge, and I think that the quicker it starts, the bigger the compound effect, right? Um, I see so many people that start off at like 16, 17, and they're millionaires by the time they're 20, 21. I have a buddy of mine who does e-commerce, and you see these kids, bro, like they're just really good at at using a computer. They get marketing, they understand TikTok, they understand Instagram, right? And they're just thriving. And what changes that person from 16, 17, 18, 19, whatever the age, from a very early age versus a person who's 25, maybe 30, 40, that just didn't have that. The only difference was they didn't have access to the information. So when you change that up, you give someone access, and they have a will to want to do it. I mean, you're gonna put yourself in a position where everything I think comes out a little better. And someone wants you to talk a little bit more. So let me start asking you a little question.
Oh,
Um, Actually, if you have a question for Mr. Money, that'd be awesome, man. Um, but yeah, no, I think regardless of the fact, like I know for a fact like teaching your family and being that person is going to be so much better than not, cuz once again that resentment can be there. That resentment can be there for it, and you don't ever want that. I think that's just it comes from a very bad place in your heart. You just want to switch that up and just keep giving, keep giving, keep giving. And so yeah, I do have a question for you because we're probably like 15 minutes from wrapping up. I know you got to go. You're a busy girl. I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about your predictions with Hex, right? Um, I know that a lot of people don't like to give it out, but where do you feel like Hex could potentially go? Do you have any math, like a guesstimate that you've done? Maybe something you have talked about with someone? Is there any prediction that you have, or you're just like, I'm gonna let it be?
Ooh. So like how low or how high?
Um, Low and high.
Okay. First off, I have absolutely no clue. So we're gonna start off with that. But so far, um, I'll tell you what my limit orders are for Hex, if that is a good place to start. I have one at 0.025, 0.015, 0.01, and 0.00101. So
Wow.
those are where, yeah, I hope it goes that low. Who knows if it will, but those are where
Mhm.
my limit orders are on the low end. If it went lower than that, oh, I would be so happy.
That'd be great. That'd be really
It's
good.
so that's the low end, and then high end. Honestly, I have no clue. Like,
You have no clue.
yeah, I don't know. Like, I would hope. My dad and I talk about it sometimes, and what he tells me is he's like it could be anywhere, from 50 cents to $2 within the next, within this next bull run, and who knows, like it could be higher than that, it could be lower than that.
Mm.
um but I definitely think it will at least hit its all-time high.
You think it'll hit all time high? I think that's pretty spot on. I think it will too. I hope it does. I'm a little bit more generous with it when I give my guesses. Honestly, there's something about the number five that I feel like it's calling Hex. Like the number five, I feel like it'll eventually get to $5. I hope it does. Honestly, at $5, I'd have a nice stack. So I'm looking forward to five. Right? Nah, $5 would be dope. I'm thinking too of like having like this kind of like this number that we're all just waiting for, and like as a team with my with the group of students that I have in the group chat. Um, like kind of like having that number, waiting for that number to happen. I think that would be super cool. But yeah, no, like $5. I think that's gonna be something. That's gonna be a number that hopefully we can touch maybe this next upcoming bull run. And if anything, I'm under promising to over deliver. For Hex to over deliver, because the reality is that who knows where Hex could go, and that's the right answer at the end of the day. Nobody knows how high it can go, and to set a cap to it is almost like limiting it.
Yeah.
um, and so I do feel you on that. Five is the number I think I'm looking at, because I think at five, I'm gonna take profit at five. I'm gonna be honest. Like when Hex gets to $5, like dude, that's such a great price to take profit at. You're gonna make so much money. You're gonna be able to capitalize and of course take some money off the table, and keep some for the bear market, right? And then yeah, I mean yeah, $5. $5. How about Pulse Chain? Let me ask you about Pulse Chain. Are you excited for Pulse Chain?
I am. So I didn't sacrifice for Pulse, but I did for Pulse X. And
Mm-hmm.
it's stupid that I didn't sacrifice for Pulse because
Why
I knew
didn't you
about it.
sacrifice for Pulse?
So I'll actually give you like the real answer. So I was
Oh,
doing my master's
it is
degree.
exclusive. We're breaking
Yeah,
news.
this is
Okay.
exclusive. So my dad had been talking about it, and I was like, okay, I had kind of heard him talk about it with like my sister's boyfriends and just like a couple of different people. And I was like, oh, like I should do that, but it was never like, oh, I need to do that. And during that time, I did a 2 years of a master's degree in 5.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like cranking out this program. I was doing a class a week. And so I was so busy with my master's degree that like thinking about investing any money was just like way too much, because I was seriously like, think about doing a whole class in 1 week. And
No, it
it
sounds
just,
crazy.
oh, yeah, it was insane. Um, Glad that I did it the way I did, because then I got my master's degree. But yeah, I was honestly just so busy. It just was not something that I was doing. And so all last summer, I basically didn't invest in anything because all my time was going towards school. And then also I was working full time. So I was
Mm-hmm.
working full time and then doing,
So full time school, you had full time work, and then yeah, I mean this was like on the back burner at this point. It was not a
yeah,
priority.
I was like, I do not have time to think about this. And so it's very unfortunate that I didn't sacrifice for Pulse, because, I had money to sacrifice for Pulse.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up going hard on my sacrifice for Pulse X.
Going
So,
hard.
yeah. So we'll see how that pans out. But talking about goals earlier, since I didn't get into Pulse, I have set goals for myself of how much Pulse I want. And so I'll just start, investing until I get to that point.
Yeah, so some people are like you, whether they missed it or they just didn't know about it when it came out. What do you think would be cool for people to really consider doing if they're seeing it for the first time, like coming out on Pulsion? Do you think they should do some research on it and take that time right now? Like, if you were you back in the day, what would you have done different, knowing that that was happening, but you were focused on here on other stuff? I'm sure there's a lot of people who are super busy, thinking that they can't focus on Hex, thinking that they can't focus on these investments. What do you have to say? What do you think you would do different?
Okay, this might sound dumb, but spend 10 minutes a day. It's not a lot of time. Like, you'll waste 10 minutes on social media or something, but take 10 minutes a day to do research, whether it's looking up the websites like pulsechain.com or watching someone's YouTube video on it, or, going and researching it through other like third-party articles. Just take 10 minutes, because you're going to be able to find information within that 10 minutes that is really going to be monumental in your decision on if you want to move forward or not. And that's with honestly any crypto. Like, just spending a little bit of time. It's crazy how like you can make one Google search and find like 2 articles, read those articles, and it can like develop a whole entire opinion about something for you. And it doesn't take that long. And so really it's just like getting over being lazy and just taking a little bit of time and doing that.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of the laziness aspect too, because I've caught myself in those positions where I didn't want to do something I knew I should have done, and ultimately, it really is that. It's just like you get a little lazy with it, and
Yeah,
people
I do.
people should understand that important. You were saying, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I do too. I get lazy.
Yeah, no, and it's fine. I mean, it happens to all of us, but dude, like catching yourself is so important. I mean, look, I'm once again, I'm biased. Like, I know what this has done for me. I mean, Rachel, I'm sure you're familiar with what crypto's done for you. Like, you're happy with it, I assume, right?
Totally.
Totally, right? Yeah, and so like I don't know if I can just give anyone like just some tips, dude. Like, really take that time, 10 minutes a day. I agree with you 100%. I don't think it's stupid at all. I think that what's funny, my barber, and this is a testimony. My barber is someone who, bro, this guy, I mean, he's a barber, right? You have to work with your hands. You can't be reading anything. Like, in between stuff, you're probably eating, you're doing something, right? And this guy is a very good barber, you can tell, right? So like, he goes from like 10 in the morning to 7 o'clock at night, and he has kids, he has a family, and he does it all over again, Monday through Saturday. Like, this is a guy who has a really strict time, bro. But even he was able to like take 10 minutes a day. And I told him the exact same thing. Bro, take 10 minutes, go on YouTube, start researching. And then over the course of like 50 haircuts, this guy eventually has become a freaking guru. And he's asking me questions about new coins and things he's researching, and he's doing his own research. And it's him just taking that time, that 10 minutes a day. Over time, I think you do start to prioritize. But this guy, he's crushed it, just doing exactly what you're saying. So I do attest to that. That's really powerful. I mean, do you have anything else you want to say? Any other questions before we go? Anything you want to wrap up with? You don't have to. It's just if you have anything in mind.
So just like going back to talking about the bear market, like, we're not going to be stuck here forever. And something that I've learned is, whatever season you're in, whether it's, like your life season or like bear market or bull market, like, take it for what it is and utilize what you have while you have it. Because even sometimes in a bull market, it's like, oh, I wish the prices were lower, like if you're investing. It's like, that's where we're at right now. Like, you have the opportunity to be able to get into these coins at this price. And just like, not even talking about Hex or, all of the Pulse stuff. Like, there's just so many opportunities right now that really are going to propel you for the future. And so, take the time and do that research. And it doesn't even have to be that long, like we talked about. So know that moving forward, like, this is kind of a sucky thing, but like, count it as a blessing too, that you get to be a part of this, because it's just like another like check mark. Because like, when the bull market comes and when the next bear market comes, it's like, okay, wait, I've been through this. I know what happens. And it's just so good, like, moving forward, that you get to have this experience now. And the next bear market, everyone who's going through this bear market as their first bear market, like they're freaking out. But then the next bear market, they're gonna be so chill, and then the new people are gonna be freaking out. And it's like, okay, like
Yeah, for real.
really, like let's just take a deep breath, and it will change. Like the season will change, and so just take it for what it is, and invest what you can because it's a great time.
That's beautiful. I think we should just wrap up with that. That was very well said. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate every single one of you guys who joined, that you commented, that supported the channel. Really quickly before we go, I want to say, guys, please go give Rachel a big thank you. Reach out to her on Twitter, subscribe to her YouTube channel. All her social links are in the description below. So go ahead and reach out to her. Clearly, she's a very smart girl. She knows what she's doing. She's someone that you can definitely learn from. So go ahead and support her. And then as far as for me, if you guys have anything that you guys need, if you guys want to become a part of the cryptocurrency community, if you have any questions, cashflowamigos.com is that place where you guys can go to. You guys can, ask, me questions, particularly there, because that's where I spend all my time. Anybody else anywhere else is a scammer. I promise you that. I don't talk anywhere else. So make sure you're talking to me on those social platforms. And then, of course, subscribe to the channel, like, support, every single comment that you guys leave. It really does help, and it makes me feel great. So thank you guys. I appreciate that. So with that being said, Rachel, thank you so much for joining me. I can't thank you enough for the value and for the knowledge you've given us today. Hope you have an amazing day.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for having me on your
No, it's my
channel. It's
pleasure.
been way fun.
I appreciate it. No, I'm excited. Oh, actually, we got to say that too. On July 7th, I'm going to be tuning in on your channel. And so Rachel's father, her and her father, they go live frequently. I think it's once a week every Wednesday, right?
Yep,
Yeah, once a
exactly.
week every Wednesday. So her father, I mean, I'm not gonna give it up. I'm not gonna give up who he is, but I recommend you guys go and check him out. He's a brain. Them and two together, it's a mastermind. It's absolutely beautiful what they talk about and the value they provide on screen. Every Wednesday, you guys can check them out. I'm gonna be joining them July 7th. I think that's in about 2 weeks, and
Yep.
yeah, we're gonna be chopping it up there. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's the last show of the video. Anything else you needed to say?
Oh, that's
Nothing
great.
at all?
Excited.
Cool, cool, cool. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone. Take care. See you guys soon.